are happy to be joined with the one of the Democratic candidates for the 6th Congressional District here, Amy McGrath. Amy, how are you?
I'm good. It's nice to be here.
You probably had one of the most explosive entrances on the political scene I've ever seen with your introductory video that sort of introduced you to the area, etc. Talk me through that and sort of how successful it was for you.
Well, it has been a great success, and I've been humbled by the response. I really do not think that it's completely about me. I think that it's about just somebody who's stepping up and people who want regular citizens to stand up. And, you know, they want outsiders. They want people who aren't necessarily been grown up in one political party or another, who are just Americans, who want to stand up and sort of, you know, raise the BS flag, is what I call it, and run for office.
Did you know, when you made the decision to run for office, well, first of all, let me do this. A lot of people just want to know about you. Tell me if you were giving me a biography of you and what made you decide to run for Congress, what is it?
Sure. Well, my background is I've been a 20-year Marine Corps officer. I had a dream as a young girl to fly fighter jets, and I was able to achieve that dream largely because of people in government who opened up those positions to women right around the time that I entered the U.S. Naval Academy. And 20 years as a Marine Corps officer, I've served my country. I did 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 tour in Iraq. At the end of my 20 years of military service came the 2016 elections. And I was so disgusted by the elections, by what was going on in politics in America today. I felt like we just need better leaders.
When you say we're disgusted, I assume you mean by Trump being elected, but he too is kind of an outsider like you sort of seek to be, right?
I think it was more the elections, the process itself, the fake news. It was almost like we had 2 sides in 2 different parallel worlds, not talking in facts. And you know, I just felt like, again, we needed better leaders. Our military is doing fine with good leadership, and I just felt like we needed better political leaders, folks who have integrity, folks who have courage to stand up for what's right, for what's in the best interest of Americans and not necessarily in the best interest of their political party.
So what are some of the issues that are important to you? I mean, when you talk about things that need to be done in the best interest of Americans, what are some positions that you really want your campaign to focus on?
Well, the biggest issue, and the issue that I hear from most Kentuckians that I talk to, is health care. You know, what we've seen from the Republicans is this push to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act under completely political reasons. In other words, they don't have a plan that's good. And they've been telling people that, hey, vote for us, we're going to repeal this, we're going to replace it with something better, and everybody knows that what they're coming up with over and over and over again isn't better. And the fact that they continue to try to push these things at midnight without CBO scores, this isn't America.
Would you keep Obamacare as it is if you were in Congress?
Well, I think Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, was a decent piece of legislation. I think that it had some holes and continues to have some holes. And I believe that we can fix it if we elect leaders who, in good faith, want to fix it, want to tweak it. Like every piece of major legislation in this country, we fix things. This is America. We don't just throw it away. We fix it, we make it better, and that's what I want to do.
There's a lot of talk about the bill that's currently being debated about Graham Cassidy, about returning money to the states. Right. Now, whether or not that bill does it or not is debatable, but in general, do you think the idea of having health care done at the federal or the state level makes more sense?
Well, I think there's a real argument to be made for it to be done at the federal level, because it's gotten to the point right now where the cost of healthcare is so enormous. And I think we need to tackle this issue as a nation. I'm not opposed to having some states do things a little bit differently, but in general, I think this is something that the nation needs to tackle.
You know, foreign policy is obviously something that you know a lot about, and there seems to be, both on the right and the left, a little bit of a difference of opinion about what the role of America is. Is America sort of the world's leader? Is America the world's police force? Or is America sort of worried about itself first and then everybody else take care of yourself? What do you see the role of America as a military power?
Well, America is the world's leader and needs to be, and we need to have leaders that think in those terms. I'm a proponent of a strong military. I mean, our military is what has shaped our world in some respects in terms of the free sea lanes around the world, for example, with the Navy protecting that stuff. That is very important. We need to have leaders that also, though, value international organizations, because the fact is you can't do anything unilaterally that's lasting. We have to come together as a world, and that means we have to have trust in our partners and allies. And so I'm the kind of person that, look, in the military, I didn't go to any war unilaterally. I've always worked with somebody from another country. In Afghanistan, I've worked with all of our NATO allies, including nations like Mongolia. We have to come together as a world, and we have to be the leader, and that's where America should be.
Donald Trump and your opponent, Andy Barr, have both criticized Barack Obama for letting the United States military wither on the vine and have said that it has fallen in the world's esteem. Do you agree with that?
Well, they're forgetting the fact that who funds the military? Congress. In the Constitution funds the military, and we have this thing called the Budget Control Act that is called sequestration. And what that has done to our military, it's really hurt us because we can't fly a lot of the planes. The ships that we have, we need maintenance on, and we don't have the money for it.
But do you blame any of that on the former President Obama?
Well, of course, it's the president and Congress. And it was a Republican Congress. So I just don't believe that this is the problem with politics in America. It's like, because I'm a Democrat, I'm supposed to just bash the Republicans all the time. That's not having an honest conversation. The conversation we need to have is, we had members of Congress that basically put their partisan priorities over our country. And this is a case where it's really hurt us because it's hurt our military.
Well, let's talk about you say, it's a lot of candidates, and you're right, bash the other party. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about things, you're running for as the Democratic nominee, things about the Democratic Party and some of their beliefs that you think are not yours, maybe in ways that you are different from what a viewer might say is a typical Democrat.
Well, I don't know exactly what a typical Democrat is. I do believe that that I don't agree with everything on the far left, for example, with regards to health care and single payer, for example.
So you're not for single payer?
For single payer, I believe that if we were to start a healthcare system from scratch, that would be the way to go, but that's not the world we live in. It's just not realistic right now. And so we need to move in that direction, but we need to move in it in an incremental way, a way that we as Americans do with every major piece of legislation.
Do you first have potential a primary opponent. And right now, Senator Reggie Thomas is your one opponent, but of course a lot of people believe Lexington Mayor Jim Gray will enter the race. Why, if I'm out there watching as a Democrat, should I vote for you over, say, Mayor Gray or Senator Thomas?
Well, I just think that, first of all, I'm running for a federal office. And I bring to that federal office some experience of foreign affairs, my military experience, and the world I've operated in. And the other candidates, their experiences in being legislators. And you know what? I'll let the voters decide what experience is best in the climate that we live in right now. I personally think it's good for the people from all walks of life run for office because we need that. I'm somebody who's been in the military where we've had a lot of members of Congress that have no idea what they're doing in terms of foreign policy and in terms of our defense policy. So, plus, we have the lowest percentage of veterans in places like Congress in recent history. That's important.
Let's talk about some issues that I know people will want to know your stance on. What is your beliefs on immigration? Do you believe Donald Trump's talked about increasing border security and building a wall, and trying to figure out what they're going to do with the Dreamers? What's your immigration stance?
Well, with the Dreamers, my feeling is these people came here under no fault of their own. And we need to embrace them. We need to find a way to make them full citizens and make them productive citizens of society. Many of them are already productive, very productive citizens of society. And the United States is a country of immigrants. We were made great because of immigrants. And so let's not forget that. That is a purely American value. And I see everything from a national security lens. So when I look at power in the 21st century, one of the things that makes going to make America powerful is immigrants.
So would you build the wall?
No, I would not build the wall. I can think it's a complete waste of money.
Transgenders in the military has been an issue over the last little bit. What's your position on that?
My feeling about transgenders in the military is, those of us who have served, you know what we care about? Can you shoot? Can you drop the bomb on target, on time, without killing the friendlies? Do you know what you're doing? Are you someone of integrity? Do you have my back when I'm getting shot at? Those are the things that we care about. None of this other stuff. It's the same thing when we went through this with Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal with gays and lesbians in the military. Nobody cares. And you know what? When they repealed it the next day, guess what? We were still the world's #1 fighting force, and we still are.
So you see no reason to?
No reason at all.
All right, let me ask you a little bit about you. One of the things I've heard a lot in people who have been interested in your candidacy is, why is she running here? You're from Northern Kentucky, and then you served in the military, and you've only lived in this district for a few months. Why is it that someone should vote for you in a district that you've only lived in for a short period of time?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't lived in Kentucky for over 20 years. I've been gone serving my country. In fact, I've spent a year of my life living in a tent in the Middle East. I would have loved to have gone to all the UK games and the Kentucky derbies, but I was off doing other things, and I can't do both. When it was time for me to retire and come home, Kentucky's where I wanted to come.
But if there's a criticism of coming here and just running for office, I mean, you're from Northern Kentucky. Somebody might say, well, why don't you go up there and run for office?
Okay.
Why this district? Why this part of Kentucky? And why run for office right after you move here instead of maybe waiting a couple years?
Sure. Well, why here? First of all, I live right now in Scott County, and it's only 60 miles from where I was raised. My husband got a wonderful business opportunity in the Georgetown area, and that's the place we ended up going and residing. So why would you not want to move? I've got small children. Lexington is a college town. It's a great town for kids. So this is definitely where we wanted to go. In terms of running right away, look, we need better leaders, and we don't need them 10 years from now. We need them now. So that's why I'm running.
Final question. Your opponent, if you get the nomination, will be Andy Barr. How would you judge Congressman Barr on how he has served here in Lexington, and why you actually think you specifically are a better candidate than him specifically?
Well, I judge him based on his voting record, and I really believe that he just follows whatever his party tells him to do. Whatever the Republican Party in Washington tells him to do, he does.
And you would not do the same for Democrats?
No, I would not.
Well, that's why I asked you sort of specific policies that you'd be against. I mean, it's easy to say that. It's another thing to go and do it. I mean, that's why I wondered, are there things specifically that you see as being, is there a traditional Republican policy you believe in?
Well, I believe in fiscal responsibility, for one. I'm not sure that that's traditionally Republican anymore. For the last 20 years, it certainly hasn't been. I believe in a strong military. I'm not sure that's traditional Republican anymore. Yeah. Okay? So, now to answer your first question, I believe that, and look, I was an independent for many years. I believe that, I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the constituents, and, I'm going to work for the people. And it comes down to, who's funding your campaigns, who is the biggest donors to you. And, I'm really proud right now that I've gotten 5,000 donors who have donated less than $25.
But how many of those are from here?
Well, I don't know how many of are from here. I just think it speaks to the fact that I've got a lot of people who are just regular Americans, as opposed to Andy Barr, who gets 98% of his money comes from wealthy and special interests. 98%. So in 6 weeks, I've gotten more small donor donations than Andy Barr has gotten in 6 years. That's significant.
Well, Amy, thank you very much. I hope you'll come join us again at some point during the campaign.